We are so fortunate to have a representative here from the Shakopee, Mdewakanton, and Sioux community, Secretary Treasurer Rebecca Crick-Stratton, who's going to come up and introduce the Lieutenant Governor to us today. So if you want to join us, Rebecca.
Mitakiapi, good to see everyone tonight. After helping welcome you all this morning, I'm glad to rejoin you now after a full and inspiring day of learning and sharing in the conference sessions. I have a special task to perform tonight. I get to introduce a woman who you all will want to hear from. She's a mom, she's an organizer, and member of the White Earth Nation of Ojibwe. She's an inspiration to many people because she's a strong, intelligent, resilient Native woman, and I'm glad to call her my friend as well. Last year, she made history here in Minnesota, in Indian country, and throughout the United States by being elected as the highest-ranking Native woman ever to hold an executive public office in this country. Yes. Before being elected as the 50th Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan dedicated her life to helping others in need, especially children, families, communities of color, Native Americans, and low-income and working people. For nearly a decade, she worked at Wellstone Action as one of the original trainers of Wellstone Action's signature program, Camp Wellstone, a training I had the privilege of going through. Later, Peggy was the executive director of the Children's Defense Fund in Minnesota. She won a seat on the Minneapolis School Board in 2004, and then in 2015, she was elected as a member of the House of Representatives here in Minnesota. Peggy served 2 terms in the state legislature before then Congressman Tim Walz asked her to become his running mate in seeking the governorship last year. With their election last November, today we are so proud to address her by a different title. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to welcome to this important gathering and present to you the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan.
Aneen, how's it going? Good. I mean, this place is on fire. But the good news is that the Shakopee, Mdewakanton, Sioux community has their own fire department. So they were here very quickly to assess the situation and make sure that everything was okay. Well, I'm really honored and humbled to be able to be here with all of you this evening in this really special opportunity of NAJA coming together with the Native American Nutrition Conference. And it's really inspiring. And I saw several members of Indian Country today outside during the fire drill. And I just briefly, while they are in the space, want to lift them up because they are telling the story that needs to be told by our own people, about our own experiences, and it is about time that we're able to share our own narrative using our own voices and to tell the truth. So Chimigwich to Indian Country today and to all of the Native American journalists in the room, we need you desperately at this time. You are our voice, you are our truth tellers, and we are grateful for your presence. So, in addition to the journalists in the audience tonight, we have healthcare practitioners, tribal leaders, nutritionists, food scientists, and so much more. So I want to just take a minute to applaud the commitment of every single one of you that you have made telling the stories and bringing our traditional foods and improving the lives of Indian Country. In addition to my role as Lieutenant Governor, I'm an Ojibwe woman. I am a mother to a 6.5-year-old first grader who is demonstrating her leadership qualities every single day. In particular, in her resistance to getting out the door in the morning in time for school. And I try to just remember that as I embrace her leadership every day. But all of this work that we do is personal. And it's personal because of our love of our people, our love of our family, and the hope that we have for the future. But we know that we also face some challenges. And I'm not going to be here talking about the oppression Olympics and tell you all about the facts, figures, and statistics that many of us can name about the challenges that our communities are facing, because we know them. But here's what we don't talk enough about. We do not talk about the assets of our community, the resilience of our community. The fact that despite everything, we are still here. And that's right. And we are in a time where I feel hopeful. And I feel encouraged by the work that is happening across the country. But one of those challenges that we face, and one of the challenges where folks are answering the call, is around access to nutrition and to nutritious foods. When I was a little girl coming up, my family relied on public programs like SNAP, which back in the day we called food stamps. And I was that kid with the different colored lunch ticket and her tennis shoe with the little zipper on the side. And we needed to go to the food shelf and rely on community to ensure that we could make it and get by. And this summer, I helped out the Department of Education to serve summer meals out of a food truck, which was an innovative way to provide meals to kids across the state. But they also had bubbles and hip-hop music and hula hoops and sidewalk chalk, because we want our kids to know we care about them. We care about their body, about their mind, about their spirit. And if you need a free lunch, that's no big deal. We're going to take care of you. And removing that stigma, as Lieutenant Governor, I am standing in front of you today, right, as a kid who qualified for free and reduced price lunch. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. Our kids are worth the investment. Our families are worth the investment. And our children, our communities are worth the investment. And just a couple of weeks ago, I visited Lowell Elementary School in Duluth, where 35% of the kids there receive free or reduced price lunch, and where Native American students make up about 6.3% of the total population there. And I saw young Native boys and girls running to grab their lunch, and I thought about history and the cultural significance of foods that our ancestors cultivated and cooked hundreds of years ago. And that day they were serving potato smileys, literally potatoes that look like smiley faces. And while those were not foods that we ate traditionally, many of the foods that were around that they were eating, local fruits and vegetables, have been part of our community and part of our way of life for generations and must be preserved today. Native folks, as you know, have used food in a way of tradition, of medicine, and to create an array of dishes that our families have eaten for generations. Our rich culture of food is also a symbol of our resiliency, which is why we must continue to reclaim and preserve our culinary culture that has long been buried and inaccessible. It's really important that we start to remove the feeling of shame and blame that comes with not knowing our tradition or our culture around food or around language, or around our religion. All of these things were systematically taken away from us. So every time we feed ourselves with foods that have been around for generations, or we experiment in the kitchen and we just don't quite get it right, it's okay. It's okay. And there are people who are leading the way. I want to lift up just briefly, and you're going to hear from him in a moment, the amazing Sherman, who has made me feel less afraid to experiment with foods in the kitchen and to know that this can be part of what my family does together and is a part of our story and is a part of our resiliency. My husband will tell you I can make wild rice. That's about it. So we're working on it. It's a family affair. But there's so much more work to be done, and I'm grateful for this conference, which is helping us to learn from each other and to restore our foodways and ultimately ourselves. There's many stories of success and many innovative ideas and approaches which you are sharing at this conference and can be applied in so many of our communities. These two conferences are a source of strength and inspiration, and I want to offer a special appreciation to the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community for not only hosting us, but for its inspiring leadership of saying we want to help lead the way and support this work across Indian country. Over the past 5 years, Seeds of Native Health campaign has helped elevate the critical effort towards improved nutrition in Indian country. Through this conference and through its grant making and partnerships with other Native and non-Native organizations and its leadership with the Native Farm Bill Coalition, the Shakopee-Mdewakanton Sioux community has made an important and lasting contribution to the dietary health and food sovereignty of Indian country. Thank you, and especially thank you to Secretary Treasurer, who is here with us today, for her inspiring leadership as well. I also want to extend great appreciation to the University of Minnesota and its Healthy Foods, Healthy Lives Institute for partnering with the community to organize this annual conference over the past 4 years. It reminds us how important it is for the university, its faculty and staff and students to work in partnership with Native communities to develop innovative solutions. And finally, thank you to each and every one of you an attendee in this room for your work in communities and for committing your time to be here at these two outstanding conferences. I feel hopeful because we are telling our own stories, we are making our own food, and we are getting back to who we have always been. There seems to be this moment where dominant culture or non-Native culture is suddenly realizing that there's Native American people still alive and here today. And many of us have heard that statistic, right, from Illuminative and from the work that has been done, where 40% of Americans do not know that Native American people still exist today. Surprise! We're still here. And our leadership is not new. When I think about the Secretary Treasurer, when I think about Congresswoman Deb Haaland, Congresswoman Sharice Davids, suddenly people are saying, oh, look at all of these Native leaders, this new movement. We've always been leaders. Since time immemorial, we have been leaders, and we've been leading our community. It is simply that the non-Native community is catching up. So, I am honored to be your Lieutenant Governor. I am honored and humbled to be in this space with all of you today. We live during a very, very important time where we are doing the work that our ancestors knew we were going to do and why they fought so hard to ensure that we would be here still today. So, keep showing up. Keep cooking, keep making mistakes and learning from them. There are so many people all across Indian country who will benefit from the work, from the stories you tell, from the food that you make, from the harvest that you pick with your own hands. And I am forever grateful to be in this room with all of you. Chi miigwech. Thank you so much.